Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Nick Blumberg. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. Here's what we're looking at. New records put a price tag on efforts to monitor CPD's slow compliance with the consent decree. And Chicago's first teen takeover of 2026 raises questions about public safety and third spaces for young people. First off tonight, it's official. Chicago Public Schools has a new permanent CEO. The Chicago School Board today approved a contract for Macklin King by a vote of 18-1. King, who's been serving as interim CEO since last June, was awarded a 3-year contract with an annual salary of $380,000. A former teacher and principal, King previously served as Mayor Brandon Johnson's policy director for education.
This moment and what it means to our future does not escape me. I understand that this could be a mark on my resume. However, this truly is a commitment to community. It is a responsibility I carry with the weight of every student's future in mind.
CEO search had been marred by board complaints about mayoral interference and by multiple reported candidates dropping out. We've got more about the search and the challenges ahead for King on our website. A new push to allow incarcerated Illinoisans to vote. Advocates gathered today at Rainbow Push headquarters to show their support for the Reintegration and Civic Empowerment, or RACE Act, which would restore voting rights for an estimated 35,000 to 50,000 eligible Illinois voters behind bars. Backers say incarcerated people are facing inhumane conditions and are calling on the governor, House Speaker, Senate President, and the Black Caucus to prioritize this bill during this legislative session.
The Illinois legislature has been kicking the can down the road on this bill for quite some time. We've been trying to pass this bill for 5 years, and every year they hide behind another reason for why they can't pass it. The reality is this is a human rights issue. People deserve to have a voice in a democracy that is determining their lived experience.
Cook County property taxes skyrocketed at double the rate of inflation over a 30-year period. That's according to a new study from Cook County Treasurer Maria Pappas's office, which looked at property tax bills between 1995 and 2024. Taxing agencies sent bills of $19.2 billion in 2024 compared to $6.8 billion in 1995. That's a 180% increase. During that same time period, inflation rose by less than 91% and average wages rose by 161%, the study found. In a statement, Pappas, who's up for re-election and considering a Chicago mayoral run, called on state legislators to pass significant tax reform and find ways for local taxing agencies to cut spending, adding the annual increases in taxes are relentless, taking more and more money out of people's pockets. Up next, the hefty cost to monitor Chicago police. That's right after this.
WTTW News coverage of policing and police reform is supported by the Joyce Foundation.
Seven years of extensive oversight from a federal judge designed to reform the Chicago Police Department has come at a significant cost for Chicago taxpayers. WTTW News reporter Heather Sharon joins us with a first-of-its-kind analysis. So, Heather, you examine the cost of the independent team of experts on policing and reform. They're charged with implementing the court order known as the consent decree. What did you find?
Well, this 11-member team, which is charged with being U.S. District Court Judge Rebecca Paulmeyer's eyes and ears on the consent decree, has been paid $26.8 million between 2019, when the decree went into effect, and 2025. That is a significant amount of money for a city that's facing a massive budget crisis. Also, in 2025, it reached a new height of nearly $4.8 million for all of last year.
That is a significant bill indeed. So break it down for us. What exactly are taxpayers paying for?
Well, this team, which is led by attorney Maggie Hickey, is charged with figuring out if CPD and, of course, the other city departments that are covered by the consent decree are doing what the binding court order says they have to do. Now, they assess compliance on 3 levels: preliminary, secondary, and full compliance. The CPD has only reached full compliance with 22% of the consent decree. The monitor's next report is due out in early April.
So do we know how long the city will be on the hook to pay these bills?
Well, the consent decree was supposed to be done by the end of 2024, but it was extended for 3 years to at least the end of 2027. It will be up to Judge Pallmeyer as to how long it continues. For as long as it does, the city will be on the hook to pay these bills submitted by the monitors every month.
Yeah, certainly 22% compliance with less than 2 years to go. Quite a mountain to climb there.
They sure do.
All right, Heather Sharon, thanks so much.
Thanks, Nick.
And you can read Heather's full story on our website. That's at WTTW.com/news.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Eight arrests and 24 curfew violations issued last week as Chicago saw its first so-called teen takeover of the year. Hundreds of young people gathered in the Loop, packing sidewalks and streets, leading some to renew calls for a stricter curfew ordinance. Mayor Brandon Johnson last year vetoed a measure that would have allowed police to impose a so-called snap curfew earlier than 10 p.m. in an effort to curb large crowds of young people from gathering. Joining us to discuss the issue are Pastor Sandy Norman, community organizer and founder of the outreach group Life Beyond Limits; Andres Zayas, a retired Chicago police sergeant and member of the Puerto Rican Police Association Board; Miaya Coleman, coordinator for Voices of Youth in Chicago Education at Communities United; and by Zoom, Rodney Phillips, associate director of crisis prevention and response at Metropolitan Peace Initiatives. We also invited a representative from the city of Chicago, but they were unavailable. We have a statement from the mayor's office we'll read later in the program, but we thank the 4 of you for joining us this evening. So, Sandy, you were at last week's teen takeover. What did you see there?
Well, I saw at least about between 300 to 400 youth that were there. It was very chaotic. When I got there, the scene was chaotic, just kids everywhere. Some of the children were fighting, and then it's the crowd. You had different kids in different spots, but for the most part, it was definitely chaotic, a chaotic situation with kids fighting. And of course, anytime kids hear police or they think the police are near, you know, it causes more chaos. And so it was very, very chaotic.
Did you get a chance to speak with any of the young people there? What did you hear from them?
I did. I spoke to quite a few teens. I even took teens home to kind of assist with helping them to stay out of trouble and trying to get them out of the environment. Most of the teens said that they were there to have a good time, especially, you know, to meet up because it was spring break. Some of the concerns that they addressed to me were that when there are other people that come, you know, and I'm just going to be honest, the terminology that they use in the street when ops see ops, and so that is the terminology that these kids use. Normally, when you have different teams that, you know, don't like each other and they wound up all coming together, that's where you have the problems that come in and the fighting, and then it just turns into, you know, what should be peaceful into total chaos.
Yeah, it may not be the goal, but folks who have a contentious relationship with one another may end up in this tightly
in the same
packed
environment.
space.
Yes.
So, Andres, downtown Alderman Brian Hopkins, he's once again calling for snap curfew powers for police. Here's a bit of what he said about last week's takeover. The situation was out of control about an hour ago, but then at 10 p.m. an order was issued for curfew enforcement. It had an immediate impact on this violent teen trend. Curfew enforcement is effective. Do you agree with him?
I do agree, absolutely. I agree with the superintendent's position, and I think most officers agree too. There has to be a curfew. Yes, there has to be accountability, but how we go about it, I think we need to come back to the table with collaborators and get us away from the silo and get us into a think tank and look at it from a task force way of thought. We got to get the smartest people in the room. Emotional intelligence is important. We have to get the right people. We've done it for other major campaigns. In 95, 96, we had the heat wave. And what do? We put plans to save lives. These kids need to be saved too. But remember, they're suffering from trauma, and so are the parents. And when you put this all together, and like the pastor was saying, the kids are fighting each other from neighborhoods, from sets, from clips, and so on and so forth. And they're bringing it to their final destination. The goal isn't to cause problems. The problems find their way there. And then everybody gets caught up in it.
And, you know, how often are officers trained to respond to large groups of young people, particularly in a potentially chaotic setting like this?
Well, I can tell you that with the stand-down orders that came out in 2005 and 2006, it eventually eroded away. So now, do we have the same tools? No, we can't use the old tools. We have to come up with a new hybrid way of addressing our youth and what they're going through. Because there's a lot of changes that we recognize. They recognize it as well.
Yeah. Mia, you know, you work with many young people. What do you hear from them about their perception of Chicago police?
A lot of my young people talk about how the root cause to the problem is youth mental health. It's important that we focus on getting funding for youth mental health. We're not asking anyone to reinvent the wheel, right? Yes, these things are already happening, but how do we expand them? Because a lot of the young people are saying, hey, a lot of these programs literally are limited. You have to be on a wait list and different things like that for a lot of these programs. And they're saying, hey, we're not going into these communities trying to be violent. We're going into these communities because ours isn't safe. Gun violence is happening, gang violence and different things like that are happening in these young people's community. And so we have to actually pay attention to the curfew doesn't stop a bullet, you know? So yeah, that's definitely what a lot of my young people are saying.
Yeah, and sort of to Andres' point about, you know, convening people, bringing people together, how important is it to have the voices of young folks at the table for something like that?
It's very important, especially in the time right now. I think that, yes, the adults want to run the space and run the room, but the young people who are directly impacted are the ones who should make the decisions of, you know, what happens to them. I think that young people have said for a long time what they need and why they need it. And if we don't listen to our young people, we'll continue to be in the spaces that we're in now. I think young people should be in the room all the time, not sometimes. I think that we should continue to think about what it does it mean to truly invest in young people and their mental health, and how do we keep them in those spaces.
Yeah. Rodney, I'd like to bring you in. You know, you work in crisis prevention. What does your role look like before law enforcement gets involved?
So my name is Rodney Phillips, Social Director of the Crisis Response Team. My role is to be my team, we be a buffer between, we have a professional understanding with CPD, but we also have a built-in relationship with the kids. So we mainly step in and engage in while they're there and try to keep down the conflict so they won't get arrested, you know. and things like that. And we step in and break in a lot of fights. But a lot of my CPRU workers come from community organizations that's in the neighborhoods that the kids come from. So we already have a relationship with a lot of them. So this is like our third year doing the crisis response, and we respond to the downtown 31st Street beaches and things like that. So we play a crucial role. It's like a go-between the two.
Yeah. And at what point does a large gathering of young people become potentially a crisis in your view?
Like they spoke on earlier. So it starts off initially, I believe everybody come with good intentions, but because of the trauma and the things they go through in their neighborhood, and we got to realize we working with kids, so they don't process and deal with things like we do. We have an adult mind, and like Ms. Sanders said, they look at it as when they run into their ops, and then you throw in a lot of variables. You know, you have teens down there, you throw in alcohol, you throw in guns, so you have the potential for a real dangerous situation. It's going to take a village, so I won't blame parents, but like the CPD sergeant said, it's going to take us to get in the room and hear everybody's side. I do believe that some of the children should be there because, believe it or not, some of the children are influencers. They have influence. Their influence just got to be directed in a positive way.
Well, the mayor's office, they had this to say regarding the last takeover. Utilizing existing curfew laws, CPD worked alongside community violence intervention workers present on the scene and the Cook County Sheriff's Office to safely disperse a group of young people who'd gathered downtown and restored order to the affected area. We are confident that the city's public safety infrastructure and current laws equip CPD with the tools needed to effectively mitigate these incidents when they cannot be prevented in advance. Andres, do you think that's fair to say? Are the mayor and other leaders doing enough on this issue?
I want to say that people's hearts are in the right place. I just believe that they have to really do some self-awareness and some soul-searching, and they have to really realize that are they here to temporarily put a Band-Aid on the problem, or do they want to solve years and years of trauma? I mean, these are the kids that are going to take care of us when we no longer can take care of ourselves. So if we don't invest in our youth today, we lost the SPIDA, we lost the Girls and Boys Club, we've lost the Boy Scouts of America, we lost all these social groups, basketball in the parks, night games. I mean, we lost all that. Why? Oh, our youth isn't worth it? No, I think our youth is worth it. They're a great investment. We just got to get the folks who want credit for this. You know what? It's a collective good. Let's apply this 21st century mission towards helping all the kids in the United States, not just Chicago. Yeah, how about that, Sandy? I mean, what do you think helps reduce potentially, violent incidents, violent gatherings among young people?
So I work with a lot of high-risk youth. I mean, I work with some of the youth that have been shot that have, as she talked about, mental health issues. And even as you talked about, it's going to take a collaboration of people that actually know what they're doing. And it's going to have to include the youth and people that are actually boots on the ground, that work with children, that are relatable, with the youth. And I also want to say that it's going to take the parents that need to get more also involved, with the children also as well. And so I just feel that as I've been doing violence prevention for almost 7 years, and I'm in mostly red zones, and so those are really like high crime areas, and I work a lot with the children. As you said, it's about, even the approach, as we talked about, the way that you deal with the children. You got to show the children love. You got to give the children a place to go. And if they don't have activities and things really to do, and especially the parents that have to play, I believe, a big part, and even working with the police department. And so I know for me, I work with the police department, I work with parents, And I have to honestly say that we have to prepare for situations like this, because even being on site, there were not a lot of violence prevention organizations that were there, and if I could just tell the truth. That's why I'm here to tell the truth. And so you got to have, people in place. You got to be prepared. I think that we need to listen to the police department also as well. And as we said at the table, you got to bring the youth to the table, because these are the people that are going to be affected. And it just needs to be people that are doing this, not for, as you said, credibility, but we really want to do this because we don't want to put a Band-Aid on the problem. We want to get to the root of it, and we want real solutions so that our children can live.
Yeah, Mia, how about that? I mean, what are some of the things you'd like to see, put into place here?
I would definitely like to see young people at the tables making the decisions, because like I said before, they are the ones who are directly impacted and know what they need and what they want. I would like to see an investment in our young people. I would like to see our young people being able to join these different programs where they are able to continue to connect with each other, because we just came off of COVID not too long ago, and this pandemic has really just created silos in different communities. And so we need to come together as one to continue to help our young people navigate. And yeah, I definitely would like to see us do that. If we can do that, we would go a long way. Yeah. Yeah,
and Sandy just mentioned folks who have boots on the ground. Yes. Do you have concerns that some of the folks who are making decisions here, who are weighing in on these issues, don't necessarily have direct experience with this field?
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. 100%.
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
Rodney, from your perspective, with a moment like what we saw in the Loop, what would an ideal response have looked like?
Ideal. So I'll walk you through how it happens. So we work close with the city and the police. So a lot of times we get information about these trends in real life time. So I'm someone for the city or community police. They'll contact me. They be watching like social media. So they'll post up where they gonna be. An ideal response will be to get there before the kids are able to get in a large crowd and able to engage them, but also have the CPD and whoever there, like they said, instead of working in silos, but working together. But here's the thing right here. It has to be accountability all around the board. Like I say, I've been in 100 team takeovers, trends. My team have been sprayed, beat with mace, some of the things, and the thing is, we have to have some type of accountability. I don't just have the answer, but I do have the passion, and I've been doing this, and I, like the young lady Sandy say, it's some people out here who sincere, honest, all us have to be at the table, but it's all trends are different. It's easy to say one thing, but when you get there on the boots on the ground, it can be a whole different thing. The plan. So it's sort of like we have things in place, but it's not enough.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's just not enough. We need a whole wraparound service for the children.
Mia, we were talking about the issue of the SNAP curfew coming back into debate once again. Yeah. Do you have concerns? You already mentioned the difficulties sometimes the folks you work with have in terms of their relationship with CPD. Do you think something like a SNAP curfew could make that even more of a challenging relationship?
It definitely can, simply because a lot of our young people have expressed that they are not super comfortable with police officers, and there has been, ways that folks have tried to mend that relationship and different things like that. But the reality is, young people need to see folks that look like them. Young people need to see folks in their community that are actually trying, because you can't just come up to a young person and say, hey, my name is so-and-so. You have to actually build that relationship. Right. And young people are looking for a relationship building. They're looking for someone who asks them about a meal that they ate today. It's just that simple. Hey, what did you eat today? You could get to know a young person, just like that. And so I definitely have high concerns for that.
Yeah. We've got just about 30 seconds left, but Andres, I want to ask you, what do you think success looks like? Is it fewer gatherings or safer ones?
You know, it's safer, and that's what it really comes down to. I remember growing up in Humboldt Park. I remember where we left the neighborhood to go to Oak Street Beach, North Avenue Beach, and we knew that we couldn't go to Fullerton Beach for obvious reasons, other neighborhood kids, so we stayed within our own lane. We were dealing with the same thing. We left our neighborhood to go someplace safe. Well, guess what? It's changed.
Yep.
The entire neighborhood is going good with the bad, and the bad is a small percentage.
But
the spectator sport of it all is where it becomes a problem, and it's everyone wants to be a spectator. Everybody wants that video. Everybody wants to get to social media. Oh, I got that one.
A very different environment than it used to be, yes.
We can't approach it like you would in 1985, where we had no cell phones.
Yeah, we need a 2026 solution.
2026 solution.
All right,
Definitely.
and I know there's a lot of work to be done on that. That's where we'll have to leave it for tonight, but we thank you all for sharing your insights. Pastor Sandy Norman, Miaya Coleman, Andres Zayas, and Rodney Phillips.
Thank you so much.
And that's our show for this Monday night. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Nick Blumberg. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm with more than 40 years of experience in medical malpractice.